The movie business can make hundreds of millions of dollars out of nothing, and it can make hundreds of millions of dollars disappear and ruin months or years of hard work off of a single decision. And that's what I want to talk about today. The example I want to use is Blade Runner 2049. And if you follow me on social media, you might know that a couple days ago I was watching Blade Runner 2049 and I basically threw a temper tantrum in the middle of the movie and turned it off over a scene that, at least for me, ruined the entire movie. Now, everybody will have their own reactions to these kinds of things, I understand that, and we'll talk about that. But essentially, without going into spoilers, what they did was equivalent to killing a dog. And if you work in writing or storytelling or big budget movies, you'll probably know or have heard that if you kill a dog in a movie, a lot of times you'll lose the audience completely. And they won't connect to anything else you do. And that's the kind of thing I want to go into today, how that works for a lot of people in the audience, myself included, and how that can affect a movie and how that can be really unfair for the people who make the movie as well. So I think that's interesting, so let's try to make that today's topic. Now, normally I don't talk a lot about specific movies, and that's because when you watch a lot of them, you develop certain fundamental ideas, and then you see those things coming up over and over, and if they're done well, the movie can turn out okay, and if they're not, the movie gets messed up, and then you end up just saying the same stuff over and over. The basic things are, you want your movie to be believable, you want it to have an understandable plot, and you don't want to insult or hurt the audience. And 95% of movies, a lot of what you'll watch, don't really deliver on one of those basic things. It's so common when you get people who are writing and who want to make a lot of money and who have written for a while. They usually work really hard at the plot, they put a lot of things in the plot, but they don't manage to bring them together in a way that makes sense. So the plots get overcomplicated, and after a while you just lose track of them. If you go to people who've just started writing, a lot of times they'll struggle with making the movie believable. Maybe they don't have the experience, I'm not sure what it is, but they have a hard time executing a plot that at the same time stays logical. They have to bring in a hero at the last moment who doesn't make sense to rescue somebody else. Characters show up who don't act in believable ways and things like that. But another thing that happens to be a problem is when you do something that the audience won't go with you on. And that can be from inside or outside the movie, like we talk about. And in this particular case, killing a dog is one of those threats that most audience members won't go with you on. And let me talk about why that is. Pets are pretty much perfectly honest. And a lot of times pets will show loyalty beyond what people have. So we care about the pet in a way we don't normally connect to other people. And the idea of something that's vulnerable getting hurt, like we talked about in the video on Can a Thing Be Too Scary, that idea is not enjoyable for us. We don't watch to see that. We watch for the adrenaline of seeing something being threatened. So if a pet or a dog gets hurt, that gives us that reaction of being traumatized. And audiences don't like it, and they don't want to go with you when it happens. So if you know what you're doing, you generally avoid it. Now in this case, obviously Blade Runner 2049 had a lot of work put into it. The special effects were great. A lot of it was stuff that I hadn't seen before, especially not in recent movies, even though it came out in 2017, because, like I said, because it gets repetitive for me, and I also get overstimulated. Sometimes when I watch movies, I end up writing down too many notes, too many things I'd like to talk about, or too many things I'd like to think about. And also my emotional reactions sometimes are too strong to things, which is why I flipped out in the case of this scene. They took a character who you're supposed to care about and who they made totally honest and totally nice, and they basically killed them. And they killed them in a way that was really brutal to watch. And I should have known it was going to happen because it was that kind of movie where I think the writers, I haven't looked at the writers' background, but I think the writers didn't have a lot of experience doing those types of big budget movies. And basically you have to put a lot of trust into somebody when you watch a movie. If you're going to actually watch the movie, you have to process the thing as though it's real. And when that happens, if they do something that's going to hurt you, even emotionally, you disconnect from the experience immediately. And let's talk about why that is. You can actually rank certain aspects of the experience of watching something because of the way our brains process situations. Believability, or the willingness and ability to connect to what you're seeing, must come before the rest of the process. And the way our brains work, the way our emotions work, we have certain triggers that come in before we'll process anything else. You can't enjoy a hamburger if the chef is pointing a gun at you. Likewise, if I'm watching a movie and something happens that's going to hurt me, including traumatize me emotionally, I'm going to check out of the movie immediately. And when that happens, when I'm not processing the movie story anymore, I just go back to the normal things we're processing, because when we're watching a movie, we're always processing 3 different stories. Not just the fictional story, the story of Deckard or Kay or whoever the Blade Runner is in the movie, but also the story of what the creator's doing, the creator's showing us something, and our own personal story. And if the creator is hurting you, you then have a negative reaction to the creator themselves. So I eventually came back and did finish the movie, but I had to finish it in a way where I wasn't paying that much attention to it. I couldn't trust them anymore to give me a good experience. And I was just watching for the reason that I started watching, which was to see Sean Young's character show up. And a little bit about that. I liked the original Blade Runner, at least in terms of, I liked the idea of it, I liked how much work went into it, I liked how futuristic it was. But another part of the movie that I really liked was Sean Young's performance as an actress. And there's one scene where Rachel, who's Sean Young's character, finds out she's going to die in 4 years because she's just a replicant. And Harrison Ford comes up behind her, and you can see that she's been letting it sink in. And I've never seen a face that puts across what she's feeling better than in that one moment in a movie. It's not overly dramatic, it's not overly sad. There's just enough that you can read so much on her face, and there's something to that that I connect to emotionally and always have. And there's also a sentimental part of me that wants there to be what I used to think was justice in the world, where if you do a good job, if you act well, if you write well, if you make a good piece of music, whatever it may be, you can be successful. And of course I was so obsessed with that idea that I started studying all the times it didn't happen, and I eventually came to all the stuff we talk about now. But there's still that part of me that wants it to be true. And because of that, I wanted to see Sean Young's character brought back in this movie. I know also that, based on interviews with her, she was really into being a big actress and she wanted to be a movie star. And after that great performance, she did get in other movies, but she never really felt like she got to where she wanted to be. And usually actors never say that kind of thing, but of course they want to be movie stars. Of course they want to make money and be successful. And I always connect it to that honesty as well. So when you combine that, I wanted to see her again. I wanted to see that character again. So I was watching the movie to see that. So even though the plot of the movie got really complicated, I still would have been interested in the movie for that, waiting to see her show up. But the scene where they essentially kill the dog messed the movie up for me so much that I stopped watching before I got to the scene that I wanted to see. The whole rest of the experience shut off because my brain wouldn't process the thing that was traumatizing me. So let me give you another example of that, and this shows how strong that can be.
But I was about to say something. Well, about Einstein's last seminar. He had on a pair of baggy trousers, but the fly of the trousers was open, and the sweatshirt protruded obscenely through the fly. And they were all looking at that and concentrating on that feature, and they were unable to follow what he was saying about the mathematics.
I can't think of one thing that would be more interesting to see than Albert Einstein's last lecture. But those things take precedence over other things. When the brain realizes there's a threat, it switches off the rest of our emotional reactions and makes us think about that first. Is this guy going to embarrass himself? Should I say something? It doesn't matter how beautiful the painting might be. It doesn't matter how fascinating the lecture might be. Your brain prioritizes danger and threats over things that might feel good otherwise. That's the exact same thing that happens if you kill a dog in the middle of a movie where someone was waiting to see something else that they were really excited to see. It doesn't matter. It's over. Now, this isn't anything new. I've had this conversation a lot with other people. The first response you'll get is, oh, it's just a movie. Don't worry about it. That usually comes from people who don't like movies. If you want to get your money's worth out of the movie, you have to let your emotions process the thing as though it's real. And the second response you'll get, and this is from people who usually work in the movies or have a stake in it or write movies or something like that, or write books, the response you'll almost always get is, that's life, bro. You'll get that's life in some form or another. And what they're saying is that it's believable. It reflects life in a way. But the thing is, there's a lot of stuff that happens in life that you wouldn't pay someone to experience. What believability actually does for you is it allows you to process the events as though they are real, so you can have things happen that you enjoy. So that's life isn't really a proper response to this or a proper explanation for this. But other than that, I did eventually get to the end of the movie, and I did get to see some of the scenes that I wanted to see. But I couldn't give the movie a good review because the emotional experience, despite all the effort they put into the movie, got cut off from me in such a brutal way. I do know, however, that the movie is otherwise highly rated, so other people may not have watched it the way I watched it, or may not have been in the mood I was in when I watched it, which is okay. But nonetheless, it's something that you always have to be aware of if you're a writer or even just a fan of movies who wants to understand how they work. There's certain things that are landmines that you have to be careful about, otherwise the rest of your work is in jeopardy. And I hope that was interesting. I'm going to be doing more commentaries like this on other topics in the future, and I'll be back later. Thanks.